it's not quite a party enough for us yet on this stage. I want to invite to the stage my good friend and yours, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Jimmy James on guitar. Jimmy James.
Hello, welcome to the Fondue Party with the Polyrhythmics live.
Hey, hey.
Hey!
Oh,
We're super stoked to be here
Hello.
celebrating a new EP, some new merchandise. You can find both of those below, as well as a donation link to help us out because we're not playing gigs right now, and anything helps. So thank you very much. Without further ado, this first track from Fondue Party.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks a lot, Stuart. For anyone who doesn't know, that's Stuart. He's to my right. I don't know if he's to your right in the boxes here, but that's our sound guy extraordinaire. We love him. He makes us sound good all the time. So yeah, Fondue Party. That's our COVID EP. For those people that don't know, these are actually tunes that were originally recorded during the Man from the Future sessions. And we actually decided to kind of take these and put them aside. A lot of them were kind of more down-tempo tunes, more chill tunes, more hypnotic tunes. And the whole idea was to try to make an EP that kind of had a vibe or more of a concept record. So that's kind of the idea behind Fondue Party. And yeah, it sounds better than Crockpot Party. But anyways, Scott, you got anything you want to add to that?
Well, gee, Grant, thanks for chiming me in here. That's great. I actually wanted to talk for a second about the naming of Fondue Party. I thought it's a fun story. It's a fun story, right, guys? All right, so a couple days before we went into the studio to do Man from the Future, that session that yielded both these records, it was my lovely girlfriend Jennifer's birthday, and we decided to go to Fondue. And I'd never been to Fondue before, so I didn't know all the rules and whatnot. They give you a big fork for sticking stuff in the pot, and they give you like little forks for, pulling it off your plate and eating it. Your hero over here decided he wanted to use the big pot fork to put it directly in his mouth, and I burned my lip. As that kind of tends to happen when you use things inappropriately, and that's what happened to me. So 2 days later, I still had a blister on my lip. We go to the recording session, and I'm like, I'm complaining, which I tend to do. I'm also the most accident-prone dude in the band. I complain a lot. It's pretty annoying all the way around. Anyway, so I go in there, and like Ben's like, hey, what's going on with you? You complaining about this? What happened? I tell the story. And then Eli chimes in and goes, "Oh man, we should just call this tune Fondue Party. This one you just heard." I was like, "Yeah, what a great idea." Ben was on board too. It's it was everybody won basically. So that's how we got the name Fondue Party, because I'm accident prone. So there we go.
I have a question.
Yes, I have an answer.
Was the tune named Fondue Party before the album?
Yes, it was.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah, because we were actually recording or talking about that tune that we didn't have a name for yet. And then I told that story, and Eli's like, "Well, we just call it Fondue Party." And Ben's like, "Yeah, I like that idea." It kind of just snowballed from there, and we all sort of jumped on it. And the tune, and then the album, and chicken egg thing. So worked out great.
And we also thought that like the concept record would work perfectly for a fondue party. It's like
true
that you could put on. It's a classy party. And it turns out it works really well during COVID, because everyone's having fondue parties now, obviously.
And look how classy we are, man. This is the first time I wore a collared shirt since May, our last thing. I mean, right, I'm a total slob nowadays, right?
And I personally have never been to a fondue party, so I don't even know what a fondue party actually is, which made the title so much more exciting for me, because it just
this is a fondue.
Just leaves it. This is a fondue party, yeah. So now I know.
Arrow food.
Thanks, breaking my fondue cherry.
Scott, would you say there is some blistering trumpet on this record?
No, I wouldn't say that. On the last one, I would say. For sure. No.
I just want to speak to one thing real quick. Scott, you are for sure the most accident-prone member of the band, like without a doubt, but also one of the toughest members of the band in the sense that you're often injured, and you're often having to play through some kind of injury, whether it's a broken foot on tour, or whether it's that time when we were on tour in some
Boise,
frigid part of Montana and Idaho where you slipped and broke your arm, and we wouldn't let you get it fixed for like 2
That's
years.
right. Ben's like, no, just it's fine. It's
not
fine.
It's definitely not broken.
Right.
And we're playing a show. I think it was in right outside of Jackson Hole.
The Knotty Pine.
The Knotty Pine, exactly.
Right.
And we're playing, and Scott has this tourniquet rigged up so he can play the notes, and this like ski doctor walks up to him and is like, "Bro, you got to go to a doctor. That shit's broken."
Because he was a doctor. He was an orthopedist, and he was like, "Hey, I'm just getting drunk at this bar, but you look like you're in pain. Can I come over and give you some suggestions about how you should go to the hospital immediately?" I'm like, "Sure."
And at that point, we had already been making you live with that for like 2 days, and I was acting as the tour manager. And I was like, you know what, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. It's time to go. We got to go to the next gig. So I do feel bad about that still to this day. But one of the prime examples of a way that you just power through every injury that you bring to the table. So nice work. And nice work recording this record with a fondue laden lip.
That's right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. I will say one more thing about that doctor is he came up to me and says, "Well, get some film on it tomorrow." I'm like, "Yeah, we got to play a set in an hour." And then I said, "What should I do between now and then?" He said, "Take 2 ibuprofen and get hammered." And I said, "Okay." And I did exactly that.
I remember that.
And then Mars Lindgren held a cowbell while I hit it on stage. There's a picture of that. It's pretty great. It was pretty funny. Anyway.
Cool.
So that's the story.
Well, I think we're gonna move on to our next track here. This one's a little special. We put together a little remote video for everyone on this one, and we hope you enjoy. Hello, welcome back to the Polyrhythmics Fondue Party, digital, back in the flesh here, sort of. We have a new EP to promote. We have new merch helping us out if you buy either of those, as well as if you donate at the donation link below. Super stoked to have you here. We're here to talk some more about the music we're releasing, and hopefully make it feel like we're kind of playing a show almost. I think we'd all like to be playing a show right now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love to.
For show.
Eli, can you talk a little about Cosimo?
Yeah, definitely. This is first of all, like for the merch that we have through Shaggy Badger, you can order it. There's a link below. Really cool artwork that we had from a local Seattle artist, Mike McKeough. Autotone.net is his website. But used to work for The Stranger, has done a lot of cool things, so we're really lucky to have him helping us out with that merchandise as well. But Cosimo in general is pretty new in terms of our development and our history, because a lot of what we've done up to this point has always been kind of trying to capture like the live sound of our performance inside the studio, and then kind of working beyond that to kind of make it into an album ready piece of art. For instance, trying to capture as much as we can at one time, and then going back and doing overdubs or recording instruments that we weren't able to do in the session later on. With Cosimo, we took it in the completely opposite direction, and this is, was just some, extra studio time we had at the end of the Man from the Future sessions. We had about, I think, 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes left of our day. Not really enough time to complete an entire tune, but I just had this small idea that we could record things separately. I had a piece that, that ended up being Cosimo that wasn't fully fledged, but we decided just to go through and record everything individually, and then attempt to piece it together later down the line. This kind of like creates like this situation where we're kind of, with that song, we're working more like, an electronic musician or a DJ might be working in terms of working with samples, but instead of just ripping some samples off of, the internet or off of a record, we're actually creating these samples ourselves and then creating a song out of it. And it's not recorded entirely with samples. There are some loops, there are some sampled parts, but there's also, through performed tracks on that song as well. So it's kind of like a hybrid recording process that, I'm happy with the way the song came out. It still sounds organic. It doesn't sound like an electronic piece. But, I'm excited, that this could be another tool in our repertoire to, create something that is a little bit different than our live show, so that we're doing something just a little bit different in the future. Grant's drum part, Carl's percussion, all super killer on this track. Art solos throughout it are incredible. We recorded those separately at Gallery 1412 in Seattle. Does anyone else have anything to put in about this?
Eli finally gets a track with how many trombone tracks are on this?
Oh yeah, 3. I think there's 4 trombone tracks in the video. I only had 3 different colored flannel shirts, so I
was gonna say, like, one thing that's sort of interesting about this is we did this track, the very last thing that we did right at the end of the session for Man from the Future, sort of not knowing, of course, nobody knew what 2020 was gonna be like in the year that we're in, but sort of this style track is kind of is the perfect style track to have recorded during COVID, because it's kind of like stylistically set up to do, clicked out multi-track, everyone records their own part and layer it on. And a lot of the process, I know that, which Art can talk about, our future plans, has us kind of thinking about that for some directions in the future and ways to utilize some of the things that we learned from making Cosimo in terms of the writing, at least the writing process for this next record.
I want to say this is just a little side topic from when we recorded Cosimo. Like that was happening inside the studio, and then a bunch of us walked outside while somebody was recording their part, and it was a full blood wolf moon that night. Do you guys remember that?
I do. Oh, yeah,
we walk outside and we look up and we're like, oh my god, that's what they were talking about? And it was super clear. It was like we're taking a slight break. I think Nate was in there recording something or something like that. But like we go outside and it's a big blood wolf moon in the sky. So if you guys remember when that happened, that was our last night of recording last year. So
listen to Cosimo underneath the blood wolf moon.
Yeah, or pay the price.
This one was really fun because, like Eli said, how we piece it together. Some of us heard this for the first time in its completed form when we were basically done with it. So that was really fun to put your piece of the puzzle in there, but then see the final picture much later on versus obviously our other work we create together in a rehearsal and gig environment. So this was just a lot of fun to see it come to fruition in a much different way.
Yeah.
To speak to that, Carl, I think that I was really impressed by Eli's creative process in here, and where he took these pieces, and I feel the same way. Like even as the engineer and the guy who's coordinating all the files and going back and forth, I cut Eli all of the stem tracks, and he came back with this full song, this fully arranged piece that was looped with the rhythm section stuff, the drums, and it sounded really nice and really flowy and really organic in nature. And it's also a track that none of us have played. Yeah. Like I think the most that I've played this track all the way through was actually to create the video that y'all just saw. And that's also something special about this track that makes our situation here unique. And I also think it's it's an unwitting prelude to potentially how we're going to record our next record or something like it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is only, Cosimo is just an experimentation into this this style or this process of working, and it's the most basic way of doing it. Like there's definitely more ground to cover, and there's more things that we can kind of mess with in order to make this even more studio heavy and stuff like that, just to get away from the live performance and create something that's totally unique. So yeah, I'm excited to see what else we can do now that we know that we can make something that sounds super organic in this process.
Yeah, I dig it. You've opened my eyes as far as what I think is possible with this group of musicians. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a big part of that is the fact that we're recording this specifically for a song. This isn't like, pulling random samples from all over the internet and sample packs and stuff and trying to mash them together. We're doing this with a purpose. And that's where the organicness, comes from while still working in this process.
Yeah, I think that's a large reason of why it still sounds very much like a Polyrhythmics track, despite the completely different process. It's because it is all our material from the ground up.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, man, nice work.
Thanks.
Cool. Are we ready to listen to our next track here?
Yes. Yes.
Sweet. Let's go ahead and check out Cracked Pepper then. Thanks for hanging with us, guys. Hello. Welcome
Perfect
back
timing.
to Polyrhythmics Fondue Party. Ben, can you introduce our guest here?
Our guest. Let's see. 1, 2. Oh, Mr. Roberts.
Hi.
How's it going? Welcome. Thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen of Earth who are tuning in on the internet. Mr. Eddie Roberts of the New Master Sounds and Color Red Records.
Very well. Lovely to see you all, boys. Lovely to see you, chaps.
Thanks for taking some time away from all that money counting that you've been doing over there at Color Red and joining us with this with this fondue party that we're having. The track that y'all were just listening to is called Cracked Pepper, and in so many ways, Eddie and his label were a part of that track, and also much of what we've done here in 2020 so far. The band Polyrhythmics was in Denver, I think, right at the inception of Color Red Studios, right when the studio was coming together, and Eddie invited us down to the studio to check it out and to kind of experiment with the sound setup. I think we were one of the first groups of.
I think you were, and I had no idea what I was doing. I've never been an engineer, and I've always produced the Master Sounds records, but never had my own studio. Never plugged in a microphone. I always show up at a studio, and they'd set it up, and I go, okay, can we make it like a bit more like this, a bit more like that, So I was very much a virgin of the engineering experience, and you guys were very patient with me and in my efforts.
Well, it was a lot of fun, and it was also cool to see sort of from sort of the very beginning, the vision of Color Red and the idea of kind of building the studio around the 388 tape machine and things that were just really that we really like. Those are to us, that's like really hip. So we went over there right after sound check, and we were like, okay, let's run through some stuff on the fly. Eddie explained to us the concept that he really wanted musicians to be recording things that were spontaneous and not necessarily like not necessarily always a well-rehearsed kind of type of affair, things that are just kind of hot on the fly. So we had this groove for Cracked Pepper that was kind of designed to be sort of like a psychedelic pause in the live show, and it wasn't sort of fleshed out or anything, but we brought that track in, and Art composed pretty much on the spot a really, really epic kind of descending horn line that he played on the flute, and Eddie turned on most of the mics, I think, for that session. And and we tracked it.
I only ever made that mistake once, and that was on your session. Yes.
but that's what it was for, right?
I didn't know that was your first session, Eddie. You looked very pro, man. You had like the glasses on the edge of your nose, you got the clipboard.
Oh yeah, you see now I have a pipe, and everyone thinks I'm like a seasoned engineer. I've been doing this all my life. I'm like, yeah.
I really thought Bond villain actually.
I mean, like the first time you came out with the clipboard and kind of looked at this and said, "Well, what do we think of that?" It was very pro, very very pro.
It was pro, and what was even more pro is that when you so graciously invited us to have a little bit of an after party at your apartment, and we get there and we see this giant golden harp, and it was that moment that we knew what this track needed and what was going to bring the song Cracked Pepper to life, and that was Eddie Roberts' debut recording performance on the harp.
It's right here.
Oh, the golden harp.
Oh.
Golden harp.
Delightful. Absolutely delightful.
Wow.
And that is pro Boogaloo form right there. But yeah, it was super cool of you to lay that down. I feel like conceptually it was just kind of like the coming together of sort of, we're kind of concept people, and when something like that kind of happens, we're just like, we got to have it. So thank you, Eddie, for laying down this track, and furthermore, thank you for having us on your label as a partner on putting out these last couple records for us, and hopefully many more to come. I'm very excited about what's been going on for you over at Color Red and Rare Sounds and the new Master Sounds. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your 2020 and 2021
yeah, well, I mean,
visions?
And like you say, I mean, the whole concept with Color Red was to build this community and have us all working together and go as far afield as we can, and obviously you guys were part of the family already, and now I feel like we're building this larger family, like on a daily basis, but yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing year, and the lockdown, even though it was weird on the touring side, it enabled us to really focus and actually have a 9 to 5 for the first time in my life, like showing up for work every day and actually getting a lot of work done, which was definitely a new thing for me, but it's been so productive because of that, so there's silver linings to this whole situation, and I think we've all found that it's you just have to kind of figure out what you do, how you kind of not reinvent yourself, but like how you just kind of fit into the new paradigm, or what, and just find different ways of working. And I think it's actually been a very fruitful challenge, and diamonds are made under pressure, as my wife always says, and that's kind of really what this year has been about. But yeah, I really value you guys leaning in to what we're doing and becoming really part of it, an integral part of Color Red. I think our visions together, they just kind of meshed, they just fit, we understood each other, we knew what we wanted to do, and I love the fact that you guys have been prolific with this, and including this, the new record now, Fondue Party, and then including me on it, on my debut harp performance, and I was very gracious of you to invite me for that. So it's all in the spirit of collaboration and really what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, we're right on, Eddie, man. It's definitely a pleasure and an honor for us to work with you and your team, most of your team, and I definitely will say that the future is bright for Color Red with all the amazing artists and also all the amazing talent you're mining out of Seattle here. With your strong A&R division that you got working for you there, but lots of exciting recordings coming out on Color Red that I'm sure all of our listeners are gonna hear about, and but more importantly, tell our audience a little bit about Rare Sounds, because that's a concept that we all really vibe with, the telling the story of the revival of the funk. The funk revival that kind of took place here in the U.S., because we're products of that revival in a lot of ways. So
well, yeah, and so we always kind of had this idea of doing some kind of vinyl club, and we were always kind of trying to think, yeah, but what's the, do you just do a vinyl club, or there's got to be like a hook to it, like there's got to be a hook to a good song, and then suddenly I realized that it was coming up on the 20-year anniversary of the New Master Sound's first album, and then suddenly like a light bulb went off, and I was like, "Duh, I'm an idiot. Of course, this is what it is. We tell the story of this funk soul revival because we're all connected. Every band that's kind of still going now, and some bands that have evolved into other things, and musicians have spun off into other things. We're all connected. We've all been connected since some of us since the mid '90s, and some of us met a little later on, and things like that. But I realized there was such an amazing story to tell that if somebody didn't tell the story would never get told. And I kind of assume that our audience knows these things, but then I'm like, how would they know these things? Because no one's ever told them. No, nobody knows that me and Robert met in '96, like the first Grey Boy All Stars show in the UK was in Leeds, and my band, the Three Deuces, was opening up for him and for them, and we arrived all together at soundcheck, and we started playing, and they were like, "Whoa, what? Like, we thought we were the only guys playing Boogaloo in the whole world right now." and you guys are in Leeds doing this? And we're like, duh, yeah, we've been doing this for years as well. So it was this kind of whole relationship started then, and then, with Neil Sugarman 3, then became Daptone. I used to go pick him up from the airport in my old 60s car and drive him around the UK doing shows with him, So I realized we had all these stories to tell, and the fact that there was so many of us doing the same or similar thing worldwide, and like in Japan there was Osaka Monorail, and you had like all these bands dotted around Europe, and then bands all over America, and we were all doing the same thing at the same time. And then we started meeting each other because we all started like touring and going to different countries and kind of going, oh shit, oh, so you guys are doing this too. Oh, so this, and then, this was before internet, really. This, it wasn't a case of like, oh, let's Google, who's funk and soul bands. This was like, you literally met, there and then, on the stage, and develop these relationships that are still lasting now, like with, and I guess, part of this, I've just done this album, WRD, me and Robert Walter and Adam Deitch. And if we didn't tell the story that me and Robert met in '96, and then the fact that the first Master Sounds US show was opening for the Grey Boys in Chicago, and their little reunion thing, you don't tell all these stories, people don't understand the relevance and the history and the relationship that we've had together. And then you make a record, like, you've got a new record coming out, and it's like, oh, now it makes sense. It's like, these guys have been playing for years, they've known each other for years. It's not just some random musicians in a room, So that was a kind of, like I said, the kind of light bulb moment went off, and I realized that I wanted to tell the story, and that it was an important story to tell.
Yeah. Well, it is an important story to tell for sure, and I think that you're right about a lot of people not knowing. I mean, we got asked to play High Sierra a few years ago for the first time for the band, and they treated us really, really well, and they gave us 3 sets, and really it was a great first experience for us there at a festival. I know that you guys have enjoyed quite a few times, and when we were there, we got asked to do like a workshop set. And we were kind of like, what kind of spoke to us was sort of doing a live version of some of the storytelling that you're doing with records, which was kind of to tell the story through music of the funk and soul revival, a set of that music that influenced us to become sort of Polyrhythmics. Songs from the Poets of Rhythm, and songs from the Grey Boy All Stars, and tunes like that were the precursors for all of the bands in the scene, in the jam band, funk, multi-instrumental scene, however you want to look at it. it was the precursor for all that. So we kind of did that, and the response was really interesting because so many people had never heard of any of these bands before and didn't realize that lineage existed. And now to have more definitive collection of records that kind of tells that story, I think it's going to do wonderful things for the live music scene and also the funk and soul community of the world. So kudos to that, and I hope people keep buying those records.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Funny, High Sierra was the first US festival that we ever played, which, I mean, I'd probably say is the first festival we ever played, because really a festival in Britain is just a bunch of people in a muddy field, and it's not really, doesn't really feel like a festival. So, you know, we showed up at High Sierra in 2005. Our first time we played in America was 2004 in Chicago, just to do 2 shows with Grey Boys. Then we came back 2005, did a little run up the West Coast and played High Sierra, and it was like stepping back in time and going to Monterey Pop '67. You know, it was such a crazy experience, and like pretty much blew our minds, and we were like, okay, like I'm in on this. I'm doubling down. Like, how do you get residency in America? You know, yeah, it was such a crazy experience, and definitely a very important and kind of strong memory for us as a band.
Yeah, and a big staple of the West Coast music, you know, world.
We played LA 2 nights before, and it was one of those gigs where you have like different people on the bill, and so Brett Dennen was one of them, and it was kind of before he'd kind of kicked off. But still, more people came to see him, and when we went to get paid at the end of the night, they gave us an envelope, and it said four times $5 equals 20. The new masterminds. That was our first LA experience.
Well, the good thing is that when you rebooked that gig for the next time, you were like, that was the new master.
Yeah, totally different band. Totally different band. Yeah, they weren't very popular. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, Eddie, thank you for joining us, you know, and on this Zoom meeting, and thanks for being there for us, putting out these records. And I can't wait to see, you know, I know a little bit about some of the things that are kind of coming down the pipes for Color Red, but I just can't wait to see what you guys come up with, especially out after people can start actually getting together and using that studio that you have over there in Denver.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's going to grow, and 2021 is looking good. You know, I think we all feel, you know, a positive change happening next year, and you know, it's going to be an interesting one to see it all unfolding again, and then kind of adopting some of the things we've learned from this year, and putting that into this kind of into a new landscape. It's going to be an interesting year coming up for sure. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Well, with that, I want to introduce this next track from our record. This is the longest track, and this track takes us on a little bit of a journey to Zion National Park, which you can see behind me here in the background. This track is. Were you there? Oh yeah, I saw the picture with the Polyrhythmics mask on. Thanks for sending that.
That's right. That's right.
But without further ado, this track is called Zion. Please enjoy.
I'm going to cut one thing in before we go to this track. We are going to do a Q&A after this. So if you guys have questions for the band, please put them in the chat. If you go to the webpage, we'll be sure to see it, but hopefully we'll see it through other chats as well. And like Ben said, enjoy. Hey, welcome back to the Polyrhythmics Fondue Party. Again, we will be having a question and answer here in a second, but before we do that, Jason, could you talk a little bit about recording in 2020 and like what Zion was and all that?
Yeah, so I mean, recording Zion was actually started out as just a groove, and the reason it's called Zion is because it was in a venue right outside of Zion National Park where we were playing, and it was on stage during sound check. And once you kind of get into the groove of touring, you find yourself on stage and you find yourself passing time. And a lot of times sometimes this creativity starts bubbling up, and that's kind of what happened there. And I had this idea, and thankfully I remembered it. I have a lot of ideas just kind of right through my head and disappear. But this one stuck, and so I called it Zion, and it just started out as purely the bass line. The bass line starts out the song, and that was the taproot, for the tune, and everything just kind of grew out from there. And much like almost any other experience with this band, I'm just amazed and incredibly grateful to be working with all of these musicians here in my company that helped form this tune. And yeah, it takes a life of its own, and it's amazing how quickly it happens. And once you present an idea to someone, you go to one corner or one person in the band and say, hey, I think I want this guitar part to sound kind of like this or whatever, and then they play something, you go back and forth. And it's just a lot of fun. It's really creatively stimulating because you get to have a conversation, both verbally about the music and then musically about how you feel about each other and each other's parts. And one of a huge part of this tune was created by Scott Morning, our the trumpet player who does so much horn work and so much a lot of the arranging and especially the horn section arranging and the harmony involved in that. And he took interest in that. He said, hey man, I want to write a thing for this. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. I would love to hear what you had to say on that. But I actually have a question, and that is where was that coming from? You hooked into it and you said, hey, you saw something in that, and so I'm curious to hear where you're coming from on that.
Well, this is okay. So you guys remember we were holed up in that place in the woods, the rental that we were in, doing a writing session, and then I remember because we'd all depart and go do our little things, get our thoughts together, and come back together and just pound it out for hours a day, just like working on new stuff. And I heard this groove, and I was like, God, I really love this. I really do. And then you had these two sections, right? The first section and the second section with the boom, jack, that part, and I was like, man, this thing needs to build. It needs a cliff to jump off of. Is what I thought, And I was like, so I took this big horn chorale over it that slowly builds and slowly builds and slowly builds, and then it kind of jumps off the cliff at the end, and kind of hands off to the guitar kind of thing. That was not the plan initially, because obviously the whole band came together on all those things, but I just had this idea that this needed to ramp up and get big and epic and then fall off the cliff. And that was kind of the whole idea with that. It just, honestly, when I heard the groove, it instantly hit me. I was like, I gotta do something for this. I hope Jason's cool with that. So I came to you immediately, that day, and I was like, can I, maybe, and you're like, yeah, totally. Which is the way kind of it works with this band. If you got something, everybody's pretty open about it. So it's cool. And I appreciate you letting me add my little bit to it, man. I really do. That was super fun for me.
I'm stoked about it, man. I'm grateful for it. And I was excited when I could see the energy coming from your corner, and I knew it was going to be good.
Thanks, brother.
And that actually, that part of the terrain of the tune ended up really kind of helping form the entire arrangement. And I had some ideas, and like you were talking, there's two sections, there's A section and B section, and then there are elements of both that I really wanted to combine into the outro of the tune or that third section. But we were still able to make that happen, and I really enjoy the peak, the climax that happened there in the middle because of that beautiful horn chorale.
Thanks, brother. I will say one thing. It is there was one thing that was kind of a challenge. I actually did something on this that I'd never really done with a band before. And I tried to layer the horns and pass it off from the three horns to make it sound like it was more like five horns, or like it would sort of climb and then one person pops out, another person pops in and take that place. So you hear two horns sometimes and then three, but the way the harmonies work, it almost sounds like there's more than that. it was sort of a trick, to see if I could pull that off with only 3 people. And I feel like it came off okay. And definitely when the mixing was happening, like everything we laid on top of that just made it pop so hard. It became what I was hoping it would become. And like, I'm really stoked about what we got there, man. Really am. So
right on. Yeah, I love that dovetail that happened. That was a really cool idea. And I think it was perfect for the tune.
Right on. Thank you, man.
Yeah,
That's a really fond memory from the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh no, I'm all done.
I have a really fond memory of recording of this. I remember when we were tracking. I think it was just on this tune. Maybe something was going on with the headphones, but the rhythm section we didn't have Nate in our headphones, and we had played this song live and we had our plan, and then we did the take and we'd go in the control room and listen, and we would hear what Nate had been playing and just like getting our minds blown by like this otherworldly approach that he had going on, because we're just sticking the groove, doing our thing, and to hear what Nate was doing the whole time in his own room with the horn was like literally like cosmic, I remember that being really, really fun.
Yeah, and the horns and keys are in the same room, so it was like we got treated the whole time in that session to all that great Nate stuff.
For those who aren't familiar with the recording process, a lot of times you're isolated in your own environment. And like Scott was saying, the keyboards and the horns were in the same room. And we were locked in that room for, a few days. There's a lot of downtime, and I don't know. Do you guys remember playing D&D between?
Yes. I do. Nate and I had one. Art was the dungeon master type character, and then Nate and I had a little adventure. It was super fun. Art, what's the name of that game we were playing? It's not D&D. It's something else.
Oh, Shadowrun.
Shadowrun.
Yeah. Scott would always bring dry roasted peanuts for everybody in the back room, and he calls them fizzy waters, but it was like, budget sparkling beverage. So anytime stuff was going on that the horns were involved with, we were just chowing down on peanuts and fizzy water.
Beer bears.
Near beer.
That was great.
It was a blast.
Yeah, but one thing really quick back to the music that I wanted to point out is that this song is a really great example of like the pedal work that Ben does and also the pedal work that Nate does, and how integral they are to like the expansive sound that the band gets. And it's like super prominent on this song, especially in that second section where it sounds like there's multiple guitars and multiple synthesizers all happening at the same time. And, I'm just, really blessed to play in a band where it's like one guitar player can make themselves sound like 6, and one synthesizer player can make them sound like 5 or 6 or 12, at any given time, just because they're so, knowledgeable about the effects and all of that type of stuff. So, I think a lot of the sound of this track is based on Ben and Nate's work for sure.
Yeah. It's so foreign to me because whenever I kick on live pedals, I sound like a third of a trumpet player. So bizarre. It's the opposite of like so weird.
Well, I personally I love this track. It's my favorite track on the record, and one of the things that I'm so proud of in it is that it really does tell the story. Like when Jason wrote the groove and he had the name for the song early on. I remember he called it Zion, and that kind of sort of I think helped all of us write our parts, just because we had all had this epic experience with a day off in Zion National Park, which for anyone at home who hasn't driven through the state of Utah at least and stopped off at Zion, I mean, it's like the sky alone will just like change your world. It's just one of these places that I think that the vibe of that park got inside all our heads while we were writing this, because we had the title early on. And for an instrumental band, telling a story is something that it's like I feel like we're always trying to tell a story, but this one, it was like it's as clear as day. It's like it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it really just tells the story of our trip to Zion in such a cool way. So I just love the way it came out. And Jason, thanks for giving us the inspiration to write it. And I also will say one more thing, that this track was, I think, fully intended initially to be on the Man from the Future record. I think when we went into the session, we were kind of thinking that it would be part of that record. And when we heard it and it stood on its own, it's like such an epic track that it just needed its own EP to kind of like build around as the centerpiece. So not only was the vibe really conceptually in line with Grant's concept of a chilled out EP concept, but it was just like it just needed its own platform. So I'm glad we found the platform for it on a 12-inch 45.
It's like falling off a log.
Yeah, man.
Perfect.
Yeah. Cool. We have a couple questions here, but before I ask those, I want to thank the visual designer for the guys, Britt Moore. Super thankful for all that. It looks really great.
Yeah, Britt.
A reminder that we do have a donation link down below, as well as new merch. All of that helps us get back on the road when that can happen. And with that, our first question here, Mandy Loves Fondue asked, will they be at High Sierra 2021? She said 2031 initially, but she corrected. I know long-term thinking there.
We appreciate both questions.
Fondue.
Mandy Loves Fondue.
All right, just checking.
I hope we are.
Yeah, me too.
That's largely up to High Sierra, and if you're listening,
yeah,
we are down.
If you want us at High Sierra, you should reach out to the people at High Sierra and in 2021 and let them know that you want us there. And enough people do that, we'll be there.
Sounds great. I can't wait to go back. That's like one of my favorite festival experiences with the band since I've been a part of it.
No kidding. It was great.
So another question. This one's from Clundon. What are y'all's favorite foods to dip in fondue?
More
Doritos.
fondue. You just get 2 different fondues, dip one into the other, you're good.
You're gonna break the universe like that, Nate.
Fondue-ception?
Chimichangas.
Ooh,
queso.
It's pronounced chimichanga.
I gotta say, having burned my lip eating fondue, my favorite thing was actually there was a little block of fried tofu that I thought were awesome.
Oh,
in there. It's pretty
Scott,
good.
You might be the only member of the band who has had fondue. Maybe not.
I don't even have a black turtleneck to wear. It's crazy.
I have had fondue. I don't know if it's still around, but for a while there was a chain of fondue restaurants in Seattle called the Melting Pot.
That's where it was. That's where we went.
And in high school in Mukilteo, about a half hour north, like that was the fancy place to take to go before dances, like before prom or homecoming. Like if you went to Melting Pot for fondue, that was like the pricey place to go. I think there was one in Queen Anne, and there was one other one somewhere else. I don't know if they're still around, but that's the one time that I've had fondue.
I think the Queen Anne one is still around. I drive by there occasionally, and I think it's still there, just in that weird little building there on Queen Anne Ave or 5th or something like that.
Well, they were there in January of 2019 because that's exactly where I went. The Melting Pot in Queen Anne. That's the exact one where I burned my lip.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Well, maybe we need to add the fondue party experience, the real band fondue party experience, to our Brazilian steakhouse experience. We just need to double down.
Yeah.
For those of you at home who don't know, we have a certain dollar amount that when we get paid that dollar amount for one gig, we're all going to the Brazilian steakhouse. We're not going to say what that dollar amount is, but when the band goes to the Brazilian steakhouse, we'll take lots of Instagram pictures.
Right.
You'll know that we achieved that goal. And maybe we should
It has not happened yet.
It hasn't happened.
It's come close. We've come close.
Very close.
Yeah. We've come close, but we haven't gotten there yet. But maybe we can add fondue to it, or maybe the fondue can be the next one after the Brazilian steakhouse, because we're going to get that one in early 2021. I can feel it.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of that, what are our plans for 2021 here? Do we have anything coming down the pipe?
I think a lot of gigs that are postponed from 2020, right? Like there are some potential gigs that have been pushed back into 2021.
PsychoFest for one. Remember that we got offered the slot for next year for PsychoFest in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Kind of a fun one that we do, but that one got pushed down the line to 2021. Kind of some sort of handshake guarantee, but that's a fun festival, man. It's great. It's a metal festival if you're not familiar with it, and we were like one of maybe 2 non-metal bands there that were just enjoying the atmosphere and having a great time. And I gotta say, metal fans are just music fans. They just love it all. They really do. Like, they showed us that they love it all when we were there. It was great.
Yeah.
I was thinking about when that question came through about High Sierra. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is like anybody that is a longtime fan or a supporter of a previous festival. I mean, you should check in with them. However, you can do that, whether it's a social media page or their webpage or whatever, because I think we've made it clear that we're trying to be creative and figure out how to kind of keep things moving, and we're just one part of a really large industry that's all trying to figure it out. So whether that's a venue or whether that's a music festival like High Sierra, I mean, everybody's kind of trying to figure that stuff out. And so when it comes to playing festivals in 2021, I mean, of course, we've got possible reschedules from last summer and some tentative plans. But I mean, everybody, if you have that part of your music family, whether it's a venue or a festival, you should probably check in and see what's going on and see if they've posted anything or written anything about their plans. That's just something that came to mind, thinking about High Sierra, because thinking about those folks and hoping that things can keep rolling,
And with venues too, like maybe just check them out and see what you can do if you have any extraneous income, which I know most people don't right now. But if you feel like your heart's in the right place for music and you want to help out, venues are dying right now. It's tough, kind of everywhere. So it's check those out. Don't ignore the please. If you can help it.
Any new recordings coming?
Funny you should mention, Stu.
Oh no.
We're working on we meaning the band and Stuart. We're trying to put together essentially a collection of favorite, some kind of collection of live recordings over. I don't know if it would necessarily be the past year. What do you guys think? Maybe longer than that?
It's like the last 3 or 4, actually. I was doing the math.
So we're undertaking this project, and Stu, who was there for most of our live performances, has, I think, willingly taken on the project that we are calling Stu's Picks, which will be a live album that we are looking to put together. Stu's going to be curating a track list, and we're all going to kind of come together and put that out hopefully in early 2021. And hopefully that will get people fired up for what may be a future of touring. I mean, after that. But for now, we'll try to sate our appetites with a live record in early 2021. And after that, I mean, for future plans for us, we're all getting together. We're talking about the next record, and collaboration has started. Like we kind of implied with Cosimo, the model is going to be different. So there's been a lot of sharing tracks online, talking to each other through email and using various online folders. But the creativity is still very much alive, and it's going to come together a little differently, possibly with just a little less of 8 of us arguing in a room together. This might actually end up
it'll be like this.
Plenty of us arguing in a room together, Art.
Right, that's true. That's true. But
what art means is writing together. Writing together is the word that you
right. Writing. Yes, exactly. So yeah, we've started trading some ideas and putting some tracks together for the next record. I'm excited for what I'm already hearing from pretty much from every guy in the band. I'm already hearing little seeds of stuff that's really exciting, and hopefully that collaboration is going to lead to some kind of recording setup that we are still discussing. I mean, there are ways to make it happen. It's just a matter of working out the details in a safe way. So I can't say exactly when that record is going to come out or when it will be recorded, but we definitely have plans to get going on that in the new year. early on.
Sweet.
If that helped.
I can't wait to hear.
Yeah. So Art, I have a little bit to kind of pipe in about that, and
please.
And I guess the main thing that I see as a challenge, and also a challenge that I'm excited to approach, is our traditional model of I guess our format of how we approach what we produce. And I remember I think Ben was the one who originally brought this to the table really early on, was to treat our rehearsals as writing sessions, and our gigs as rehearsals, and the recording session as the gig. Right? Because the real object or the goal, the point being, create these recordings in a way that involves spontaneity, that involves being artistic, and a huge part of that is gone for us. A huge part of that is gone for us in this last year, and for many others. But specifically to speak to our process of creativity and how we actually produce what we produce, the art that we put out, that we scribe to vinyl, we need to find out, and we're working on how to reconcile that, how to reconcile the fact that we don't have that live format, where we don't have these testers where we say, oh, let's try this arrangement, let's try this, let's try that, let's see how the crowd responds, let's see how we feel about it. We're not gonna have that opportunity, so we're gonna have to manage that in a different way. And so far, like you said, I'm encouraged. I love it. I love what's happening, and I can't wait to see what comes out. But that's kind of where we're at in 2021, because that's what we've been in 2020, which is without live performance.
That's right. You touched on that on a previous, I think when we talked a little while ago, that what we're really trying to do is fill in that gap that is workshopping material on tour. So that's what that's the part that we need to fill at this point.
And that's also what the audience has to look forward to when we come back to the whole process, like whether or not they realize that they were all the guinea pigs. Right, the party was the guinea pig, right? And that was and that's exciting. It's like, it's cool. It's like we get to say, oh, let's see what everyone else thinks about this, and then they may not know one way or the other, but I hope the audience can appreciate that, and the people that come to our shows in the future can come to our shows knowing that they might actually have input on what we make.
That's true.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
In that respect, like, every live show is different because it's constantly evolving, because of the process that we have. It's like, yeah, you're the guinea pig, but you get to see the evolution of the song if you come to multiple shows before it's recorded.
And it just means that Stu gets to work a few extra hours longer for when we just like build in those 3-hour sound checks to every gig. And
hey, I want the 3 hours. We've had this conversation.
He's been a good sport about it. That's one of the things that we love about Stu, is that Stu not only makes everything sound awesome and better than it could in our minds, but there's a passion for the art and the job that he does, whether it's as a live sound engineer at Nectar, working for other bands, but also with us, where like his work is his passion, in the same way that our music is, and our creation is our passion, and that the passion behind that is inspiring to us, because we don't feel like when we're on tour with Stu that we have like an employee that we're, that's like looking at the clock or whatever. He's just like right there as an integral part of that creative process with us, and just always down to throw down a little bit extra to make it happen. For example, that Cosimo video that you guys saw today, not only did Stu, I think, give us the confidence to put that video together, but he actually did put it together. Like,
yeah, that was Stu.
That was Stu.
That was Stu.
And he killed it.
We really appreciate Stu.
Great.
And look forward to celebrating a little bit more of Stu in permanence in the Stu's Picks, in the first edition of the Stu's Picks series that'll be coming out in 2021. So super stoked about that.
Stu Jackson, the ninth Polyrhythmic, man.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to be here, guys. I'm stoked that we get to do all this, and I can't wait for some live shows. Let's make some loud noises in 2021. Not enough of those.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Go ahead.
I think we're kind of wrapped up here on questions. We got one more track. Anything we want to say about that before we go to it? Because I think we're just going to kind of cut after this. Thanks again, everyone. We got a donation link below. Any notes on Fondue before we do it?
I mean, but yeah, before we do that, I think I'll just tack on really quick and say that I'm stoked with the creativity that I've seen from everybody in the band. But I also want to say, like, just in the last however many months, I've also been really impressed and comforted, and my heart has been warmed by how creative fans have been to like go out of their way to show support, because it's not easy. And I think, I mean, some of the messages that I've received and that the band has received from fans and listeners of music that have like actively found the way, you know, to support the music in whatever way they can. It's been incredibly impressive and inspiring. So just a big thank you to all of the supporters of us and live music in general, because we truly cannot do it without you. I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah. Right
on. Thanks for saying that, Art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember if I had any thoughts on this last track, but actually I feel like, Grant, would you be comfortable taking this on? I know you had talked about one of the things that you liked about this last track is kind of how it ended up being a piece on its own. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar to how Cosimo kind of came about, and you know, it's kind of a brand new way of writing, recording, production, and that's basically, you know, we took some loops and we put loops together, and then we overdubbed things over those loops, and you know, this is another track that we haven't ever played live before, yeah, it was actually Ben's idea, I think, to kind of take the second half of Fondue Party and kind of take this loop that we recorded and, you know, kind of edit it together in different ways to make it interesting. And it also just kind of, you know, gives you a good reminder of like how effective, you know, simple things can be, and writing things through like a different kind of production style, you know. I think it's a really eye-opening thing. And I think also it's going to be really interesting to hear in the future when we actually play these tunes live, because they're going to sound nothing like the version that we're doing now, because what we've been doing, you know, as everyone has said multiple times, is like, you know, we record these versions of our live shows, right? And now we're kind of operating from the opposite kind of perspective, where we're like, it's all about just figuring out, you know, this recording, and then we'll figure out how to make it, you know, happen live later, which will be interesting, you know? So.
Awesome. All right, here's Fondue.
First you're here,